So we are here in Kennesaw, Georgia at the site of Pigeon Hill. On June the 27th, 1864, this place would become a valley of death, literally, here on Kennesaw Mountain. So in this episode, we're going to take a look at Pigeon Hill. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens here on June the 27th, 1864, and about the federal troops and Confederate troops that would desperately fight here in this area. So let's explore Kennesaw Mountain and Pigeon Hill. This episode of History Saver is brought to you by Addressing Gettysburg. Addressing Gettysburg is a podcast that shares great experiences, quality programs, awesome guests, and is a welcoming community for all who love Gettysburg. So join in with host Matt Callery and find out why Addressing Gettysburg is one of the top rated podcasts online today. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Castbox, Podbean, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, right here on YouTube. So check out Addressing Gettysburg today, where history is not boring. Thank you to Addressing Gettysburg for sponsoring this video.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
In the summer of '64, the Union marched with might. Sherman led his soldiers on to Atlanta in their sight. Through the rugged hills they came with courage in their hearts, facing Johnston's rebel lines entrenched on southern heights. Oh, Kennesaw Mountain, where the cannons roared so loud, the soldiers fought with valor beneath the battle's shroud. With hills and trees their witness, where brave men fought and fell, fighting hand to hand on your slopes and in your bloody trenches. Oh yeah.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of History Saver 1941. Yes, we are back. We are right now, well, at Pigeon Hill in Kennesaw, Georgia. Let's check it out. So when we visit battlefields, you've heard me say this time and time again, my favorite thing to study when I'm on the battlefield is the battlefield terrain itself. And well, Kennesaw, Georgia holds a very special place to me for that meaning. Right now, we're on Pigeon Hill. And if you look in the distance, you can see we're at the crest of a hill here. Down below us is a wood line, a gully, a valley, whatever you want to call it. And it's going to play key here in the battle on June the 27th, 1864. So we're walking up, parking lot's right there. And by the way, this is probably one of the most freaking busy battlefields I've ever seen in my life, even topping Gettysburg. As a matter of fact, the park ranger told me, well, we are actually the busiest battlefield in the nation. I didn't know that till today. So we have a marker here in honor of the officers, non-commissioned officers, and men of the 15th U.S., 16th U.S., 18th U.S., and 19th U.S. Infantry, who will fight here in 1864. Right on top of the hill. Pretty fitting spot. So the monument's right behind us right there, and we're descending down the hill here. And we're, as you can see, going through this terrain here, going down the hill into this ravine. Now, this ravine on June the 27th, 1864 was described by the men as, well, a thicket. I mean, there was briars, there were vines, there was anything you can imagine. And it would play key in the Union Army's advances here against the Confederate works. Because, well, they wouldn't just have to fight withering Confederate fire. They would have to fight these natural obstacles of terrain, such as these vines, briars, and anything else that may stand in their way. It's the middle of the summer here in Georgia, and it's really no different from today in the middle of the summer in Georgia. You've got all the vegetation that's out and about, and this is going to stop the federal advances into this area even more than the Confederate fire that's drawing them in. So as they're advancing, they're having to fight the natural obstacles of the terrain here. You can see this as we're descending down. And yeah, I'm gonna tell you what, it's pretty beautiful. It's a nice day to be out here, but I would not want to be here in June of 1864. It's hot, and these guys are in these wool uniforms, and they're going over this rough terrain up under enemy fire. Gentlemen, this is serious business, and some of us must go down. Yeah, that's a pretty impressive and haunting quote when you think about it. So these are the words of Union Brigade General Giles Smith on the morning of June the 27th, 1864, as his men are one of 3 brigades tasked with attacking Confederate positions of where you see me standing now, here at Pigeon Hill. So Smith will only be one of the 3 brigades of Logan's 15th Corps designated for this attack on the morning of June the 27th. The others would be Charles Walcutt's brigade and also Joseph Lightburn's. Now Walcutt would go in first. He would be in 2 lines of battle, and the Federals were overwhelmed the Confederate skirmish lines. There are some things that are hindering the Federal advances here. 1, the Confederate fire that's withering their positions. Number 2 is the Confederate artillery that's pouring in from a nearby ridge. One soldier described that one of the officers, his head was taken off by a shell, and then the shell would explode, taking off his arms. And this was an instance that was, well, repeated over and over in many different accounts about the artillery fire that would be pouring in these positions, and these graphic accounts of what's going on in the woods that you see before me.
We plunged the shells among them as fast as we could reload. I saw their flag go down there 3 times, and as often picked up and kept in front. It was to me an awful sight to witness so many men killed and wounded. W.L. Truman of Guybor's Missouri Battery.
Now also, as the Federal soldiers will make their way through here, they're fighting that Confederate fire that's coming in, the artillery that's coming in, but they're also fighting the June summer elements of Georgia as they're making their way through these woods. One soldier describes the underbrush here of vines, briars, and oaks. And well, that's what it was in this exact position of June 1864. As we're coming through these woods, you can see it's clear today, but in 1864 and in the middle of the June month of summer, it is hot. They're in wool uniforms, and the underbrush is at its peak. You also have, well, snakes, rattlesnakes, and different things like that to contend with as well. So there's a lot of natural elements these Federal soldiers are facing as they're attacking this position on the morning of June the 27th. Now, Charles Wills is going to describe the Federal advances here through oak and vine and underbrush. And they are going to break up the Federals' formation before they get close to the rebel works. They would charge up this slope with musketry fire pouring in, and then they will falter after 45 minutes and fall back.
There could be no concert of action and little leadership. Each had to climb or shelter himself and fight as he best could. A soldier of the 55th Illinois.
Now, Lightburn's troops will fight hand to hand with the 63rd Georgia. They were kill 40, capture around another 40 men, and Smith's men also with 4 skirmishers in front of Cockrell's line. Now, in this, 41 of Cockrell's men would be killed, wounded, or missing in action. The Federals would then advance up the hill. Now, Confederate musketry and artillery would stop the northern attack. Cockrell's men would rest their rifles on the works made of dirt and rock, and fire after fire after fire of muskets would come into the Federal lines. At the same time, General French's artillery would be nearby off of Little Kennesaw, and it would be hammering the Federals with artillery fire. Now, in this, some of Smith's men would only get about 15 foot, maybe 30 or 15 yards or 30 yards, but they wouldn't get any further into them. and they will be pushed back at that point. Now, the Federals will continue that are left on the field after a bugle is sounded for retreat. They would stay there until darkness. A lot of these guys clinging to anything they could get cover behind, and then they will fall back up under the cover of darkness. Many of these guys were wounded. There's artillery falling everywhere here. So many of these guys wounded, and they will fall back in those positions. So we're walking through the trails here at Pigeon Hill. Now I think we're a little behind Pigeon Hill now, but there are miles upon miles upon miles of nothing but trails here. And I'm not for sure where this one leads, so I'm gonna turn around. But I am really found the area here where I'm by myself. So, you know, you could almost just walk somewhere here and you could find a nice log like I am here. And you can just sit down and you can imagine what's going on here on June the 27th, 1864. And it's going to be a desperate fight here in the woods of Kennesaw Mountain and Pigeon Hill, as General French has artillery set up on Little Kennesaw Mountain. He's battering the Federals with artillery fire. And there are several accounts you can go back and read of the Federal soldiers who's attacking these positions here at Kennesaw. And one Federal soldier is going to talk about witnessing his officer, and his officer that is with him is going to be struck by one of the Confederates' artillery shells that's going to fall in this area. The shell is going to take off his head and is then going to explode, taking off his arms. Another Confederate had made the experience writing of he's going to witness a color bearer of the Federal Army in this area that's going to take a cannonball that's going to sever both of his legs, and then it's going to take out the legs of the next man behind him. So in this area, there's a lot going on as far as the carnage of battle. And you've also got to take into account in this episode, as we walk across this field, the civilian experience of the American Civil War that's taking place in communities such as this, which is referred to at the time as the New Salem community, is these people are caught up in the actions of this. So, you know, when you're walking through these battlefields like this, you also want to think about that civilian aspect of the American Civil War, that civilian experience of the American Civil War, and what they're undertaking in these small communities. And it's not going to be so simple as these people could come back home and then return to their lives. Many of their buildings have been burned, they've been damaged, they've been destroyed, and they've been turned into hospitals. So when they do come home, well, they find what belongings they have left in the yard or completely destroyed. So, you know, you really have to take in the evaluations of the civilian aspect of the American Civil War when you're standing in places like this.
Kennesaw Mountain, where the cannons roared so loud, the soldiers fought with valor beneath the battle's shroud. With hills and trees their witness, where brave men fought and fell, fighting hand to hand on your slopes and in your bloody trenches. Oh yeah. Mountain, the cannon spoke, and rebel General Leonidas Polk fell. Johnston's men retreated back to the mountain's rugged swell. Cold storms saw fierce skirmishes, Union men held strong, yet the rebels kept their ground as the fight went on and on. Oh, Kennesaw Mountain, where the cannons roared so loud, the soldiers fought with valor beneath the battle's shroud. With hills and trees their witness, where brave men fought and fell, fighting hand to hand on your slopes and in your bloody trenches. Oh yeah.
So in the field you see before me, there was once in the 1840s a little Georgia dog trot style cabin. Now if you lived here during the American Civil War, you would be careful at night because in the center of that cabin was a breezeway to let the breeze pass directly through. And it would be open to dogs and skunks and anything else that may just trot through the house. Now, the cabin that was here belonged to the Hardage family, and they built this cabin in the 1840s. They soon moved to a larger house nearby. They have 14 children, land, and the family actually run a sawmill here, and they were part of the New Salem community that was here in Kennesaw. Now, as the fighting increased here, the Hardages and their neighbors would endure the soldiers camping in their front yards and their backyards and their gardens, and they would also endure the bullets that would fly by as the hostilities would grow larger and larger. Finally, they would flee to Stone Mountain, Georgia, and they would camp in railroad boxcars with other Civil War refugees. And, well, this is a site of their cabin. So, one of my favorite parts to study about the American Civil War is the civilian experience of the war. And, well, you can kind of see traces of that right here at Pigeon Hill. Because you got to think about it. This was a community. People lived in this community. People built their lives in this community. People farmed in this community. And, well, when that battle or that war would hit so close to home here in Georgia, well, their lives would be transformed to adapt to that war. And it was no different for this family who lived in this cabin that once sat in this field behind me. And they would flee. They would flee to Stone Mountain, Georgia. They would take refuge eventually there in boxcars with other Civil War refugees. And, well, they would leave the life that they once knew behind them in this field. So pretty cool to think about these civilian aspect stories of the American Civil War when we're studying the war itself, because it's often, well, a stone that's left unturned. So this is a pretty cool place. Really, really, really awesome place for a good hike, and also just to get out and enjoy some quiet and the smell of the woods. So I really enjoyed this walk. So we're going to get out of here. We're going to head to the next place here in Kennesaw. You will see that on the next episode here of History Saver. So see you on the next episode of History Saver. Until then, keep observing history, stay safe. We'll catch you down the road.